Pokopia feels like someone threw Animal Crossing and Pokemon into a blender, and somehow it works perfectly, which is great news for me because cozy games are absolutely my thing. So to truly 100% Pokopia, we have a checklist that we need to conquer. Finish the main storyline, uncover what happened to humans, restore every region of this massive island, build habitats for Pokemon to live in, water an unreasonable amount of grass, seriously, so much grass, and of course, complete the Pokedex by catching all 300 Pokemon. The journey began with a very suspiciously cute Ditto, who woke up with one goal: find a Pokedex. Things got strange pretty quickly. The Pokedex showed flashes of the past, a town, a trainer, and me being petted. Right, so, small detail, I'm the Ditto. With that cleared up, it was time to prepare for this adventure. Character customization popped up, and naturally, I made myself as blue as possible. Looking good. Moments later, I dramatically fell out of a Pokeball, straight into a cave. Waiting there was a Tangrowth, who seemed very surprised to see what he thought was a human. But little did he know I was a Pokemon too. Before I could go anywhere, a strange noise echoed nearby. Following it led straight to the Pokedex. Tangrowth had absolutely no idea how it worked, so he handed it over to me. Bold move, considering I had no idea what I was doing too. He complimented my human transformation, asked for my name. Naturally, I followed up with a big question. What happened to the humans? Instead of answering, he told me to follow him, which I did briefly until I got distracted by a rock. Anyway, as we moved through the area, Tangrowth explained that this place used to be full of life, humans and Pokemon everywhere. Now, it's dry, empty, and abandoned. Or at least, that's what it looked like. Because not too far ahead, we found a Squirtle who looked like he hadn't had a drink in years. This man needs some milk. There was just one issue. There was no water Pokemon around. But then it hit me. Right, that's my job. I'm a Ditto. After transforming, I unlocked Water Gun and immediately put it to use, absolutely blasting this poor Squirtle back to life. The Pokedex beeped, and that was our first entry registered. We're officially on the board. Squirtle mentioned he used to nap near a clear pond, but now we'd woken up in what can only be described as a dried out wasteland. Not ideal. But then something interesting happened. The ground where I used Water Gun started turning green. Tangrowth noticed it too. Apparently, I had the ability to restore the environment. So I got to work. A nearby bush came to life, unlocking my first habitat, tall grass. Then another, a flower bed, and the area slowly started to recover. I revived a tree, headbutted it, standard procedure, and picked up some leopard berries for later. And then just as things were starting to come together, a new Pokemon appeared. Bulbasaur. He seemed pretty happy with the place, which is always a good sign. Another entry for the Pokedex, but he did have one complaint. The grass nearby was still too dry, and if I could fix that, he'd teach me something new. Conveniently, I'd already taken care of it, so after a quick chat, I unlocked Leafage, a move that lets me grow tall grass instantly, which is perfect, considering how much landscaping I was about to be doing. Squirtle also wanted the proper home, so I built him a fresh, tall grass habitat right next to Bulbasaur, and our little neighborhood was forming already. After some more exploring, I found a strange box, which at the time refused to open, so instead I headed back to Tangrowth. Food was becoming a problem. There wasn't much around and Pokemon was starting to get hungry. Luckily for me, I had some berries on hand. Feeling generous, I handed them out to Squirtle and Bulbasaur, who immediately started munching, and in return, Tangrowth gave me a gift. A chair. Nice. I went to place it down and instead swallowed it. Turns out Ditto storage works a little bit differently. No pockets, just everything goes in. Good to know. Eventually, I placed the chair next to Squirtle's home and took a seat. Honestly, not bad. That's when Bulbasaur called me over. He'd found something. It was the same box from earlier, except now it opened, and inside was a workbench. Now things were getting interesting. With crafting unlocked, I picked up a few recipes and made a campfire. Only problem, it wasn't lit. Bulbasaur mentioned knowing someone who could help with that, so I built the right habitat, waited a bit, and sure enough, Charmander showed up. I had him follow me over, and just like that, the fire was lit. With that sorted, it was time to get some rest. The next day, Tangrowth had a new idea. There was a nearby human-made building that we could investigate. Following the path led us to a collapsed Pokemon Center. Surprisingly, the PC inside still worked. After Tangrowth gave it a smack, I checked it out, and the verdict was the environment was still in terrible condition. Not exactly a welcoming place for Pokemon, but there was a solution. A system called PokeLife offered daily challenges. Complete them and the environment would slowly recover. So I got to work, collecting sticks, gathering items, and uncovering Pokemon traces, which were little clues that hinted at where certain Pokemon could be found. Some required specific setups, an exercise area for example, so I placed a punching bag next to a bench. Another one needed a boulder surrounded by tall grass. Simple enough. And after setting everything up, it didn't take too long. Timber showed up first, apparently a building expert, then Hitmonchan arrived at the training spot. The habitats were working. Hitmonchan even taught me Rock Smash after I helped him out, unlocking another ability to add to the list. Between watering trees, completing challenges, and exploring, progress started stacking up quickly. Coins came in, a shop unlocked, and the island slowly started to feel alive again. Back at the camp, Bulbasaur had one more request. He wanted something soft to sleep on. I crafted the straw bed, placed it down, and he immediately passed out. No hesitation. That's when I learned about comfort levels. The better a Pokemon set up, the happier they are, and the higher the environment level climbs, which unlocks even more to do. New Pokemon like Pidgey started moving in, more challenges appeared, new habitats became available, and I even found a way to track how many Pokemon I discovered in each area. Tall grass, we were still missing a few. So naturally, I got back to work, expanding habitats, watering everything in sight, and seeing what would show up next. At this point, I may have gotten a little bit distracted, and by a little bit, I mean I completely forgot what I was doing. While wandering around aimlessly, I noticed something massive flying overhead. A huge bird way up in the sky. Yeah, that's definitely some kind of legendary. While exploring the back of the island, I also stumbled across a fossil buried in the ground, which is great, except for one small problem: I had absolutely no idea how to dig it up. So naturally, I left it there and moved on like it wasn't important. After running around cleaning up the area for a while, I decided that was enough effort for now. And to be fair, things were looking way better. The land was greener, habitats were forming, and it finally felt like progress was happening. As I was wrapping up, I spotted a comb hanging around the flowers, and not long after, I picked up a couple more Pokemon traces. One hinting at a habitat with a tree and 4 bushes. So, back to work. I filled the area with even more tall grass, bought some flower seeds from the shop, and started setting up proper flower habitats. Everything was going smoothly until the game hit me with this. Wait a full day for the flowers to grow? Yeah, no, we're not doing that. So after a completely legitimate and totally fair time skip, the flowers were ready. Hate the game, not the player. The next morning, Squirrel handed me some bean seeds. I checked in with Tangrowth and he finally brought up something important. I needed a house. About time. To get started, I had to grab a leaf den kit from the shop, and interestingly, Tangrowth mentioned that building houses might actually bring humans back. Back at the shop, I reached environment level 3, which meant a lot of new unlocks. I picked up the leaf den kit and got started. I had to place the building site, gather materials, and recruit Pokemon to help. Luckily, I already had everything I needed: timber for construction and Bulbasaur to assist. The crew got to work, and I was told it would be done in 15 minutes. Whilst they handled that, I decided to put my Rock Smash ability to good use, and immediately obliterated a massive pile of rocks. Very satisfying. I also discovered I could just vacuum items straight into my body, instead of picking them up one by one. Hey, being a Ditto has its perks. Breaking through the rocks opened a brand new path, which led me straight to the shore. Then my Pokedex started ringing. Tangrowth. Tangrowth was calling me through the PC. Great, he's got a direct line now. I'm never escaping. While exploring the area, I found vine rope inside a Pokeball, unlocking a picnic basket recipe. Further ahead inside a cave, I discovered glowing mushrooms and a recipe for a mushroom lamp. The cave eventually looped back around to the second area, creating a really handy shortcut, but by this point my inventory was completely full, so it's time to fix that. Back at the workbench, I crafted a storage box, and while exploring I realized these specific rocks weren't just decoration, and they were actually meant to be destroyed. So I did exactly that, and behind one of them, a hidden room. Inside were 5 Pokemetal ingots, which sounds expensive, so I'm taking them. After smashing a few more rocks, I discovered a small cave with a flowing water source. Inside, there was a strange rock I couldn't harvest yet, and deeper in, an Onyx, sleeping. Not gonna lie, this is a little creepy. I tried getting closer, even stacking blocks to reach it, but I just couldn't get anything to happen, so I backed off. Back outside, I came across an area gate. I placed my Pokedex panel, ready to move forward, and immediately got denied. Apparently, my trainer rank wasn't high enough, so basically, I'm a beginner. On the bright side, I found a cute fort with some Shellos, which honestly made the rejection sting a little less. Back on the shore, I met a Drifloon. He casually suggested that we travel together, and just like that, he was added to the Pokedex. That was easy. Drifloon mentioned he didn't have a place to live, so naturally I took on the job. This unlocks a new habitat, which for some reason involves 3 campfires. Don't question it. Conveniently, there was a workbench right there on the beach, so I crafted everything needed for Drifloon's new home, and of course the fires need lighting, which meant heading all the way back to grab Charmander, and on the way I ran into Hitmonchan, who told me to check out a rock pile, the same one that I had already destroyed. After a brief moment of confusion, he realized I'd already done it, which apparently makes me a Rock Smash champ. I'll take the title. Back at camp, the house is finally finished. From the outside, not bad. Inside, very cramped, but hey, it works. I threw down a torch in the corner and was ready to call it a day when Timber stopped me. Apparently I needed to place 3 different pieces of furniture inside, so I crafted a bed, a mushroom lamp, and made the place at least slightly more livable. Not exactly luxury, but we're getting there. Charmander wanted to celebrate the new house, he just wasn't sure how, so naturally we went to ask Tangrowth. Tangrowth agreed celebration sounded great, but first we needed food. So Charmander set off to gather some berries and immediately dropped them all. All of them. Thankfully, they didn't go to waste, because Tangrowth somehow turned them into a Ditto flag. I placed it right outside my very luxurious bush home, and you know what? It actually looked pretty good. So I brought Charmander over to the campfire, and just like that, they were all lit. Drifloon officially had a home, except he wasn't fully satisfied. Apparently he missed humans. He then added that humans give him energy, specifically human kids. This man's about to get me demonetized, but thankfully all he asked for was a doll. After that completely normal interaction, I caught back up with Hitmonchan. He'd spotted a Pokeball at the top of a set of stairs and wanted me to grab it. So I climbed my way up, smashed a few rocks, and grabbed the reward, a dowsing machine. Now I could team up with certain Pokemon to sniff out hidden treasure. Very useful, once I figure out how to actually dig anything up. While messing around up there, I accidentally created a new habitat habitat, an elevated flower bed, which is exactly what it sounds like. Flowers, but higher. And right after that, another one. A full field of flowers. At the top of the mountain, I found something a little more mysterious. A strange tombstone. It looked like it needed some kind of offering, so that's noted for later. Back at camp, I started checking on everyone's comfort levels. Bulbasaur wanted the toy, Combee wanted one too. But this is where things got interesting. By clicking in the right stick, I could actually see habitat boundaries, and a lot of them overlapped, meaning that one item could boost multiple habitats at once. So I placed some toy blocks right in the overlap, and not only did it work, but the Pokemon actually started building with them, which was unexpectedly wholesome. Bulbasaur and Combee were both happy, mission accomplished. Squirtle, on the other hand, wanted food, so I gave him a berry, but that didn't work. And there was nothing useful in the shop either, so for now, Squirtle remained slightly unsatisfied. We'll circle back to that though. Charmander also wanted the toy, so I picked him up a Weather Charm doll, and I even upgraded my backpack space while I was at it. Then I discovered something new. Pidgey can hunt for treasure, and almost immediately he found something. Only problem was I still had no idea how to dig it up, so once again, treasure marked and ignored. I also realized I'd placed a Ditto flag wrong. Apparently it doesn't go outside and it goes on top of the house instead. After fixing that, Tangrowth took a moment to appreciate everything. The area was thriving again and life was coming back, and it reminded him of something. This place used to be a hub, a place where humans and Pokemon gathered together, a Pokemon Center. That's when he asked for a favor, and that was for me to rebuild it. To do that, I would need to unlock the Pokemon Center building kit first, which required a higher environment level. Except, I was already there. Perfect. I checked the shop, there it was. The price, 1,000 coins, but I still bought it. To build it, I need help from a Pokemon that knows the Bulldoze move. And I had a pretty good idea who that might be. So I immediately headed back to the cave, but on the way, Squirtle stopped me. He was curious about a broken bridge nearby and wanted me to check it out. But we got there and I couldn't cross it. I needed another move. Sorry Squirtle, not today. On the way back, I smashed a rock that released a stream of water, and this was actually really cool. Anywhere the water flowed, grass instantly came back to life. So I guided it all the way to the fountain, and just like that, the whole area looked way better. Back in the cave, I found some rippling water, which gave me a pink hook hit. Not sure when I'll use it, but I have it. Then I heard something. A voice. Calling for help. Of course, it was Onix. Still stuck. He asked me to break through the wall and free him. I tried. It didn't work. I wasn't strong enough. So instead, he suggested I get help, which, probably the smarter approach. Back at the PC, I learned about something called a stamp rally. Basically, I could collect one stamp per day and trade them in on Fridays for coins, which was basically just free rewards for playing the game. I grabbed my first stamp, then I went to find Tangrowth. He was staring at a massive stone wall, wondering what was on the other side, and honestly, same. So I broke through it. On the other side, the ocean. Off in the distance, I spotted a strange structure, almost like a small lighthouse. So naturally, I headed over, and along the way, I finally figured out how to dig up treasure, using a rock smash. That's it. That's the method. I dug up a large lost relic and continued towards the structure. And inside, I found some kind of electrical panel. Another PC, but this one was different. Someone was talking through it. They welcomed me to their hideout, said they were a business that uses Pokemon, then quickly corrected themselves to an organization that helps improve the environment. Yeah, that didn't sound suspicious at all. They offered me a chance to join them. All I had to do was complete their team initiation challenge. Step 1 was delivering 5 leper berries. This feels like unpaid labor, but fine. I gave them the berries and they handed me a bouldery badge. Now that might actually be useful, possibly for that gate I couldn't get through earlier. Then came part 2, and it escalated quickly. They wanted 10 beans, 10 tomatoes, and 10 wheat. I haven't even started farming yet. While exploring a bit more, I came across a strange mechanism. I managed to release some water into it and watched it flow off somewhere else entirely. I don't know where this led. Then further down the beach, I ran into a Magikarp, and surprisingly he had a request. He wanted a new home. The requirements were a fishing rod and a seat. That's simple enough, and in return he'd teach me one of his moves. So I got to work, placed everything down, and Magikarp officially moved in. Time for my reward. He taught me his move, Flop. Fantastic. But before I could fully regret my life choices, turns out Flop actually lets me jump. Never mind Magikarp, I owe you an apology. I also figured out that I could climb vines now. Back at the camp, Bulbasaur challenged me to a game of jump rope. Perfect timing. I had just unlocked jumping, so clearly I was a professional. First attempt. Okay, that didn't count. that did not count. On my second attempt, 50 jumps. Hey, not too bad. And with that out of the way, I went back to expanding habitats. I added a few tree-shaded tall grass areas to attract more Pokemon, and almost immediately, bushes started shaking. Bellsprout popped out at first, then another Russell, Cypher. This one I'd actually been looking for. He asked me for 2 sturdy sticks. I handed them over, and in return, he taught me Cut. Now we're talking. With Cut, I could clear wooden barriers, and yes, even vines, which meant more areas opening up. Cutting through one section led me to 5 more Pokemetal ingots, and at this point, it was finally time to deal with Onix. I headed back to Tangrowth and we gathered the team. Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. It was time to make a plan. The idea was we needed rain. Rain would soften the rocks, making it easier to break them and free Onyx. Small issue though, it hasn't rained here in a very, very long time. So now the mission was simple, figure out how to control the weather, and apparently the answer was Slowpoke. Of course it was. Luckily I already had a habitat set up by the ocean, so I headed over to check it, and after a bit of searching, there he was, Slowpoke. Perfect. I asked him to make it rain, he was just as confused as I was, but then he remembered he could control the weather. There was just one problem. The ground was too uneven, and he'd get tired before even reaching Tangrowth. It was about a 15-second walk, but alright. I crafted some steps, and honestly I wasn't even mad about it. I was tired of jumping everywhere anyway. I built a clean path leading straight to Tangrowth, and then we waited, and waited, and waited. Slowpoke was taking his sweet time, so while he slowly made his way over, I kept busy, building more habitats, including an illuminated tall grass setup using glowing mushrooms. I even climbed a bit too far and accidentally found a whole new area, which conveniently connected back to the Poké Center location. Eventually, Slowpoke made it. He explained an old human legend that rain falls when a Slowpoke yawns. So naturally, we asked for a yawn. He tried, he gave us a big yawn, and apparently that didn't work. We need a proper one. A 100-point yawn. Full stretch, maximum effort, and for that, we needed more humidity. So back to watering everything. Again. After what felt like an unreasonable amount of effort, I gained 1 extra point. 1. At this rate, we'd get rain sometime next year. Slowpoke then suggested something slightly more helpful. Ask the other Pokemon for help instead. Finally. Bulbasaur had an idea. He talked about a massive field of flowers he used to play in and showed me how to recreate it. So the plan was simple. Plant a ton of flowers. The problem was that the shop was completely out of seeds. So I tried leveling up, picked up a new toy for Pidgey, found Girder and Pinsir, decorated habitats, and finally reached environment level 4, but still no seeds. And that's when I realized I could just dig up flowers and get seeds that way. Perfect. So I did exactly that. I built a massive flower field and Bulbasaur instantly grew the whole thing. Surely this was enough. No. Still not enough humidity. Now I needed ponds. Somewhere along the way I found a Pidgeotto, but progress on the Slowpoke situation had completely stalled. Maybe Squirtle's old quest was the missing piece. And it turns out it was. All Squirtle wanted to do was visit the beach I already unlocked ages ago, because now he finally acknowledged the fountain I'd restored earlier. Back on track. Squirtle then asked for a hydrated tall grass habitat, so I built it, reported back, and he immediately asked to move in. At this point I was convinced we had enough humidity, and we did not. We were still sitting at 80. So close. Then Squirtle had one final idea. A rain dance party. Of course. Who would have known? To set it up, I needed food, and something that reminded him of rain. So I headed back to the cave and picked up some cast form weather charms, then got to work building the setup. 2 dolls, a plate, a nice juicy berry, and a perfect atmosphere. While I was there, I even found a Vespiquen hiding nearby. With everything ready, I woke Squirtle up, and it was showtime. He ate the berry and immediately started dancing. Back to Slowpoke, one more try, and finally, perfect 100-point yawn. Rain. Actual rain. It worked for about 5 seconds, and then it stopped. Right after that, we heard a roar from the ocean, so we went to investigate. We reached the shore, and there it was, Kyogre, just sitting there. Yeah, that's probably important, so I went to approach it. But there was just one problem. The bridge was broken. So before I could meet a legendary Pokemon, I had some planks to craft. To fix the bridge, I needed lumber, which meant figuring out how to actually get lumber. That's when I realized I could hand small logs over to Cypher, and he'd process them for me. 5 pieces of lumber per log. Not bad at all. With enough materials gathered, I rebuilt the bridge, and it's time to meet the giant sea god. I made my way across, and there he was, Kyogre. Up close, he looked even more ridiculous, in a good way. He took one look at me and immediately got confused. Couldn't tell if I was a human or a Pokemon. Honestly, same. I explained the whole situation. The drought, the failed rain attempts, the very overworked Slowpoke, and Kyogre finally gave us an answer. The reason the rain stopped? He'd been asleep, at the bottom of the ocean. So the entire weather system just shuts down when this guy takes a nap. But just like that, we were on good terms. My trainer rank jumped up to great, and Kyogre let out a massive roar, bringing the rain back instantly. Yeah, that was significantly easier than anything we just did. With rain finally under control, it was time to head back and finish what we started. Onyx. On the way to the cave, I noticed a Goomy hanging out by the rain dance setup. Turns out he loved the rain. And just like that, another Pokemon moved in. Back in the cave, the rocks had softened enough. I smashed through them and finally freed Onyx. I returned to Tangrowth with the good news, and while the rain had stopped again, things were different now. From this point on, the weather would cycle naturally. Rain, clear skies, and everything in between, which meant new Pokemon would appear depending on the conditions. Like Goomy, who only shows up when it's raining. And even better, I could pass through that gate from earlier. But before moving on, I had other plans. The area was alive again, sure, but it still looked like a bit of a mess. So I decided it was time for some proper cleanup. I started laying down pathways throughout the town. Stone tiles quickly became my favourite. Clean, simple, and actually made the place look organised. To match, I added wooden fences and stairways, stone paths, wooden structures. Honestly, the combo looked pretty good. I was about halfway through decorating everything when I ran out of stone, of course. So I went back out to gather more, and while doing that, I found something interesting. A hidden cave. Inside was some kind of puzzle wall, and there were slots for mysterious slates, which apparently could be found buried around the island, meaning I need to collect every single piece to complete it. That's gonna take a while though. There was also another hidden room nearby with a journal inside, but no matter what I tried, I couldn't reach it. That's when I found Drillbar, which immediately felt like the solution to my problem. But before dealing with that, I realized something. I'd completely forgotten about Onyx, again. So I went back to check on him, and he was fine, just waiting. But this time he had a request. A proper home. Specifically something dry. He wanted 4 patches of dry tall grass and a smooth rock. Luckily, I already had a smooth rock stored away. For once, I was actually prepared. And now, I just needed the right spot. And honestly, the mountaintop felt perfect. High up, quiet, and definitely dry enough for a giant rock snake. While all this was going on, a few more Pokemon started showing up. Oddish joined the crew, Wartortle pulled up, and even a Hoo-Hoo decided to move in. The island was definitely filling out nicely. But progression hit a wall because I had used up pretty much all the stone on my island. Every last bit. So I went back to finish something I'd left hanging earlier, which was Drifloon. I returned to him and showed him the Eevee doll that I picked up, and just like that, he got excited and told me he could take me somewhere amazing. Which, coming from him, was slightly concerning but also intriguing. Apparently if you show Drifloon a doll, he can take you to something called a Dream Island. Now, Dream Islands are basically their own little worlds. Different resources and different items. So I placed the Eevee doll near the Poke Center and called Drifloon over, and off we went. We made it. Dream Island. The first impression, this place was stacked. I immediately started looting. Carefully collecting resources along the beach. Stone, items, anything I could grab. And then I found something new. Stardust. Apparently you can turn Stardust into a star piece and give it to a visiting Pokemon from another player's world. And in return, they give you a gift. But honestly, the biggest win here? Stone. Just from the beach alone, I picked up 48 stone, which is more than I'd left on my entire island combined. I also found some chesto berries. I found a house on the island, and let's just say I didn't leave it the way I found it. Furniture was gone. Supplies was gone. And by the time I was done, this place had been completely ransacked. Eventually, I headed back home with a massive 64 stone. And honestly, I'll take that. At this point, I decided something important. If I was going to 100% this game, I couldn't just throw habitats down randomly and call it a day. Every Pokemon deserved its own space. No more messy clusters, no more, yeah, they probably live here. I wanted proper, organized habitats, something that actually felt like a town. So I got to work. First up, Bulbasaur. I give him a proper setup. Finished it off with a bed and a small fountain, and honestly it looked great. Then I started adding fences along with pathways, simple wooden fencing, but it made a huge difference. Suddenly everything felt structured, like an actual place Pokemon would choose to live in. While working through everyone's setups, I ran into a bit of a problem though. Food. Some Pokemon were very specific. Hitmonchan, for example, wanted sweet food. So I tried giving him berries, but that didn't work. I even tried placing the berries on a plate for him, but that also didn't work. Meanwhile, Pidgeotto asked for any food and happily accepted the berry with no complaints. For now though, I put the food issue to the side and kept building. Habitat after habitat, everything slowly started coming together, and just when I was nearly done, I discovered something very useful. If I triggered the rain ritual and forced the weather to change, it didn't just help with quests, but it actually watered and cleaned the entire map passively. Meaning all that time I spent manually watering everything is completely optional now. That was a game changer. While I was testing it out, I noticed something else too. A new Pokemon had shown up near the ritual. Cacnea. Apparently even the weather system was helping me find new Pokemon now. While everything was coming together, even more Pokemon started showing up. Venonat, Noctowl, and Paras all joined the island. And with that, I was finally done. Every single Pokemon now had their own unique habitat. No more clutter and no more confusion. From the starting area to the Poke Center, all the way up to the mountain where Onyx was supposed to live. Everything was organized, which meant it was now time for the next big goal, rebuilding the Poke Center. There was just one requirement. I needed the Pokemon with Bulldoze. For some reason I thought this would have been Drillbar, which was wrong in the long run, but we went looking for Drillbar either way. I found a Heracross as well as a Volbeat, and then finally found Drillbar, who explained that he'd been practicing Rototiller. But the soil here was way too dry. Every time he tried, it just crumbled apart. So all I had to do was water the soil. Easy. A little bit of hydration later, and just like that, he taught me his ability. He did still need a home, however, but at this point we were completely out of space. So I called in some rain with Gumi and started clearing out a new area. I let water flow through the land where Drillbar's home would be, cleaned everything up and started building a proper pathway. That's when I ran into a small issue. I couldn't break the brick path near the gate. No matter what I tried, it stayed. This was slightly infuriating, but it's fine. It's part of the design now. Of course, right as I got into building again, out of stone. So back to the Dream Island I went, and this time I took everything. Stone, resources, and even some new flowers, red and pink. Did Did I need them? Not really. Did I take them anyway? Absolutely. Back at home, I planted some blueberry trees for a bit more variety and finally finished Drillbot's habitat. Feeling good, I went to start the Pokemon Center building, and that's when I realized Drillbot does not have Buildos. It's Onix. The same Onix I'd already rescued and the same Onix I'd already built a home for. The same Onix that had also now completely disappeared. I searched everywhere. No sign of him. At the same time, I hit environment level 5, thanks to all the decorating and habitats, which was great, but also not helpful. At this point, I started overthinking. Maybe it was the rain. Onix does like dry areas, and it had been raining a lot. So I switched the weather back to sunny using Charmander, and then I also noticed something else. The dry grass in Onix's habitat kept getting watered by the rain. Even though the game still said this was his home, it felt a little bit broken. So I rebuilt his habitat. I waited a few days, even did a little time skip, and still nothing. Onix was just gone. But then I remembered there's a tracking feature. If I used the Pokédex, I could track a Pokemon and have a flying Pokemon lead me straight to them. Luckily, Pidgeotto was up for the job, so I locked onto Onix and followed the trail, and when I finally found him, are you serious? This man was sitting in the puzzle cave, the same one I found earlier. Not only that, he'd managed to get himself stuck. At this point, I had no words. I had to break through the roof just to get him out. And after that whole Onix situation, I decided that he deserved an upgrade. So I built him a brand new, waterproof home, a nice, cozy cave. And not just that, I even added the tunnel running through it, acting as a shortcut into the next area we still hadn't cleared up yet. While I was working on the area, I figured I may as well stay efficient, so I sent my Pokemon off to start rebuilding the Poke Center in the background. By the time I was done here, it should be ready. With Onix relocated, his old spot was now free, so I replaced it with 2 brand new habitats. On the opposite side, near Onix and Drillbot, I built another setup, this time a 2-in-1 habitat. There was just too much space and it felt like a waste not to use it. I still preferred 1 habitat per Pokemon overall though, but in bigger areas like this, doubling up just made a bit more sense. Using the nearby waterfall, I created 2 more hydrated tall grass habitats, and then since I still had space left, I went all in. A large flower bed, and right next to it, a full dining setup. Table, chair, and some actually decent looking food, because apparently we're running the restaurant now. To finish things off, I built a staircase leading through the cave and up onto the hillside, and surprisingly, there was a lot of room up there. After a bit more building, I stepped back, and honestly, this area looked really good. So I decided to time skip, patiently wait real life time for everything to grow, of course. When everything finished growing, all the new habitats were active, and waiting for me was a Gulpin. Even better, the Pokemon Center was finally complete. Inside, I could use the healing machine to fully restore my power points, which was already a huge upgrade. But then I noticed something else. A printer. Apparently I could use it to create items from images. So if I took a picture or something like a piece of furniture, I could just duplicate it. That's insanely useful. I also picked a PP up, increasing my max power points. And if I haven't talked about this yet already, the bar at the bottom right of my screen is my power points. Anytime I use any sort of ability like cut or rock smash, that will go down. To increase it, I can eat food such as beans or berries. At this point, I was pretty happy with how everything looked, so I went back to doing some more quests. A Scyther needed help. He explained that he loves flowers, but every time he tried to pick one, his scythe just shreds it instantly. So basically, he needed someone with less blades for hands to help out. I went out and grabbed some wildflowers and in the process discovered something really useful. Using Rototiller, I could dig up flowers directly. No seeds, no waiting, just instant flowers. I brought the flowers back to Scyther, then stopped by Vesper Queen to give her some honey. She let me pick a reward: cushion, a sofa, a resort chair, or a lamp. I went with the sofa, comfort first, and just like that I learned something new. Pokemon with the honey ability can give you special furniture, in the exchange for honey of course. At some point I remembered I had built a log table ages ago, so I finally went back and told Charmander. I spoke to Hitmonchan, who immediately punched me in the face, and then handed me some bean seeds. I'm choosing to believe that's just how he says hello. Next I checked him with Gulpin and gave him a carrot, and just like that he turned into a walk-in storage unit, which means if I have him follow me, I basically have a portable backpack. That's actually huge. Back to Charmander, he mentioned that while he likes the rain, if his tail gets wet, he's basically done for. So he wanted to try living in a leaf den. Custom home coming right up. While I was at it, I helped Hitmonchan out again by harvesting some beans from Drillbot's area, turned those in, and that was another quest complete. Then I returned to the cave where we originally found Onix, and there was still something I hadn't explored: a door. The main reason I wanted to go through it? Simple. I needed whatever was inside to unlock the ability to demolish houses, because I kind of wanted the new one. So I scanned my Pokedex and headed inside. On the other side, it was clear. Humans had been here, but not recently. The place was a mess. Broken structures, debris everywhere, like something had gone very wrong. Tangrowth spotted a PC nearby, and next to it, the remains of another Pokemon Center. Inside the ruins, the PC wasn't working, completely dead, but nearby there was this strange circuit board crackling with energy. So clearly power wasn't the issue. It just wasn't connected. The idea was simple. If I could move the computer closer to electricity, it would turn back on. There was just one small problem. I wasn't strong enough to move it. Tangrowth mentioned that a Machoke probably used to live here, which makes sense. This definitely felt like a job for somebody who lives things for fun. So I made a note of it and decided to come back later, because as tempting as it was, I still had unfinished business in the Withered Wastelands. Back at the Pokemon Center, I finally unlocked demolition kits, and without hesitation, I destroyed both of my houses. No attachment, no hesitation, we're upgrading. This time I went for a proper leaf house. Bigger, better, and way too large to fit in my current area, so I placed it in the next region, the one I hadn't cleared yet. The next day, the house was ready, but before I could even check it out, I felt a very familiar presence by the ocean, Kyogre. He just casually showed up, checked in on me, and made it rain again. Appreciate it, man. After that, I spent about half of my Pokemetal crafting large storage boxes, which felt painful at the time, but very necessary, because they can hold double the space. And then finally, I went to check out the new house, and yeah, this thing was huge. 2 floors, loads of space, an actual upgrade. I decided not to decorate it just yet. For now, it was purely for storage. Speaking of storage, the large boxes were amazing. 3 sections and 10 slots each. So I spent some time organizing everything. Resources, items, materials, everything finally had a place. I even invited Gulpin to live in the house, since he's basically a walking backpack. It just made sense to keep him nearby. I was just about wrapping this area up when suddenly visitors started showing up. First, Hitmonlee, who greeted me with a foot to the face. Then came Axu, followed by Shellos, and even Cubone. I hit environment level 6. Pokemon started spawning everywhere. Left, right, and Charizard. Yeah, I placed a random bush for decoration and a fully evolved fire-breathing dragon just popped out of it. Sure, sick. Right after that, Cacturne showed up too. Not quite as dramatic, but still a solid addition. While exploring a bit more, I found a Venomoth chilling in a cave, which also explains something. The habitat that I built near the Pokemon Center, this never worked because this guy had been sitting in the original one in this random cave the entire time, just waiting for me to notice him. Poor guy. After that, I spent some time farming squishy clay from the cave where I freed Onix, and there was a reason for that. More houses. Now, technically I could move Pokemon into buildings, and apparently a lot of them actually prefer it, but that really wasn't my plan. I didn't want the island turning into a city full of houses. I like seeing Pokemon out in the open, living in their habitats, walking around, actually part of the world, so instead I decided to use buildings more for decoration. Just add a bit of structure without losing that natural feel. At one point I took a quick peek into the new area, and this place was completely different. A massive beach, dark for some reason even though it was clearly daytime, something I'd definitely be coming back to later. But for now, I'm sticking to the plan, one area at a time. I want each zone to feel finished before moving on. But the only reason I even came here was for resources, tomatoes, and back near the electrical area from earlier, wheat. Both of which were exactly what I needed, because now I could finally start meeting some of the more specific needs my Pokemon had. Like Noctowl, he wanted something with a dry flavor, and wheat did the job perfectly. So I spent some time going around, improving comfort levels, fixing habitats, and making sure everyone was actually happy. And with that, I reached environment level 7. More unlocks, more options, and one item in particular caught my attention. Wood borders. Simple, but I had an idea. I started placing them along my stone pathways, and instantly, everything looked better. It gave the paths structure, made them stand out more, and honestly tied the whole area together. I spent a while placing them all down, but it was worth it. The island was really starting to come together now. And just to put it into perspective, I was over 25 hours in and still in the first area. But honestly, that's kind of the point. Games like this aren't about rushing. They're about building something you actually enjoy looking at. And right now, I was very happy with how things looked. There was still a bit left to do around my house area though, so I went back and finished that up. Cleaned it up, filled in what I could, and left a few empty spots ready for future habitats, saving space for later. Then while walking along the beach, I found something interesting. A silver feather, which definitely didn't come from any of the Pokemon I'd seen nearby. So yeah, that giant bird from earlier, I'm pretty sure that's going to be important. Next up, I turned my attention to the beach area near the Onix cave. While I was there, I decided to test out the copy art in the Pokemon Center, took a picture of a fishing rod just to see what would happen, and it worked. Kind of. I could copy items, but it was asking for 5 rare Pokémon per item. Yeah, that's not happening. At least not right now. At this point, the Withered Wastelands was pretty much complete. I give the beach a bit of attention, added some habitats along the shore. Didn't go too crazy with decoration here though, there just wasn't much room to work with. I also placed a couple small huts further up the beach just to give it a bit more life. There were still a few untouched areas, like the second beach with that suspicious building, but honestly, that place was just awkward to build in. Same with the hilltops. They're there, but getting up to them, decorating them, making them look good, it just felt like more effort than it was worth. So for now, I'm pretending like they don't exist. If I need the space later, I'll come back. For now though, I was ready to move on. I'd basically run out of habitats I could build here. Either I didn't have the materials yet, or I needed electricity to unlock more, which meant one thing: time for a new area. Rocky Ridges. And without spoiling too much, this place changes everything. Before building anything though, I needed a plan. For this area, I wanted to use the Yellowstone as my main pathing, and then brick paths for the coastal beach area I found earlier. So after a bit of grinding, I stocked up. While exploring, I came across something weird. An icebox, and just casually nearby, Suicune. Yeah, just standing there, another legendary Pokemon. He spoke to me, and then asked if he could come back. Of course, I said yes, immediately. For now, I put him in my house, but long term, he's getting a proper habitat. After thinking it over, I actually changed my mind on the pathing. The Yellowstone looked way better on the beach, and since there was already some place there, it just made more sense. So for Rocky Ridges, brick paths it is. I also found a Pikachu plushie, but with that sorted, it was time to start building in our new area. The first new habitat was elevated red tall grass, which, yeah, the grass is just red here. Then another regular red tall grass, and this place already felt completely different. I also learned about a special doll hidden in the area, one that could take me to a dream island full of alpine grass, which I definitely needed. You see, the grass in this area is completely different from the grass in the withered wastelands that we decorated earlier, so I needed to stock up on this so I could decorate to my heart's extent. After some searching, I found it. The Arcanine doll, along with a recipe for marble. And I may have decided to change the flooring for the third time. Okay, listen, if I'm building a new area, it needs to look good. And the marble looks amazing, so I need marble now. Off to the dream island, I collected alpine grass, picked up some random trash, and found ores that I couldn't mine just yet. And of course, lava. Lots of lava. There were also these mysterious statues which I absolutely took, no hesitation. To make marble though, I needed limestone, and while there was limestone in the main area, I didn't want to ruin it. It actually looked really nice in the caves, and I wanted to keep that aesthetic intact for later builds. So instead, I needed a dream island specifically for limestone farming, which meant finding a Clefairy doll. So I pulled out the dowsing machine, teamed up with Pidgeot, and started searching and searching and searching. I spent an hour doing this, and finally I thought I found it. Nope. It was a substitute doll. Great. So I kept going, digging up everything in sight to the point where the dowsing machine literally ran out of things to find. At this point, I had one goal. I just wanted marble. That's it. I dug up every single treasure on my island. There was no more signals, no more pings, nothing. So I took a break, and by taking a break, I mean I time skipped a week, and the next morning, I got straight back to work. Well, first, let's see who decided to move in overnight. Near my house, I had this growing field of beans. Still not fully finished. I needed more seeds, but apparently it was good enough because it had attracted an Excadrill, and right next to him, a Parasect. Back to treasure hunting again. The first item I dug up was a substitute doll. You've got to be kidding me. Somewhere in the middle of my suffering though, I did find a guitar recipe, which was cool. Very cool, but not helpful. I time skipped it even more, and I got a notification that apparently a Pokemon was the talk of the town. Turns out Bulbasaur was hosting a jump rope competition, and you know what? What better thing than to take my mind off this stressful digging? I took part, and in my first attempt, I got 62 jumps. Bulbasaur then handed over a star piece, rainbow feathers, lost relics, silver feathers, and even a jump rope trophy. Back to the grind, our next treasure was an armor fragment, which unlocked recipes for auspicious and malicious armor. And next, I found a doll, which was a Ditto doll. At this point, the game is just trolling me. Another substitute doll, and at this point, I had completely lost hope. I genuinely started to believe the Clefairy doll just didn't exist. So I gave up searching there and went back to Rocky Ridges. And the first treasure I dug up, a Clefairy doll. Turns out the internet had lied to me. I had been searching in the wrong area for 4 hours. I could have done this in minutes. Anyway, we move on. From all that digging, I ended up with a ridiculous amount of mysterious slates. Each one had an unknown symbol on the back, which matched to the symbols on the wall I found earlier. So I started piecing it together, and about halfway through, a picture started forming. I'm not going to ruin this just yet, but if you guys know, you know. Back in Rocky Ridges, I had a Chatot waiting for me, but more importantly, I finally had both dolls I needed. An Arcanine doll for alpine grass, and a Clefairy doll for limestone, which meant one thing: it was finally time to decorate this area properly. This place was a mess though, so naturally, I cleaned it up. I cleared out a huge section, but then ran into a problem: a massive rock. And I still wasn't strong enough to break it. So instead of forcing it, I decided to progress the story just a little bit. Back near the ruins, I explored underneath the kitchen I demolished earlier and found someone stuck in a barrel, completely trapped, and I couldn't free them yet. Even Tangrowth had nothing useful to say about it. So moving on, time to deal with the Machoke situation. I set up a few temporary habitats because I needed Pokemon who actually knew about Machoke, and almost instantly, Scorbunny showed up. Perfect. He told me exactly what I needed and gave me the habitat required to attract Machoke. So I built it straight away and waited, and by waited I mean about 10 seconds because there he was, Machoke. I helped for his help with lifting the heavy rock, but of course he needed to warm up first. Step 1, find a wide open space to train. Perfect timing, I had just cleared out that kitchen area. Step 2, pick up 5 rocks. Easy enough. I grabbed them one by one until only one thing remained: a massive boulder. And right on cue, I learned strength. Just like that, problem solved. The boulder was gone. And while all this was happening, Kricketot and Riolu also showed up. After a bit more decorating, I finally went back to that broken PC and pushed it over to the power source. And just like that, it came back to life. I was already at environment level 2 here, so we weren't starting from scratch. And while I was talking to Tangrowth, I suddenly heard someone shouting for help. But first, new Pokemon. Larvitar. Anyway, the voice we heard earlier, it was coming from that barrel. Turns out there was someone trapped inside, and not just anyone, apparently the best chef in town. I tried cutting the chain to free them, but it was too strong. Instead, they told me I need to get stronger by eating meals. So this mysterious person, Pokemon, whoever they are, taught me my first proper recipe. But first, I needed to find a Dartrix. So I built the habitat and went exploring while I waited. Along the way, I found Diglett, just casually popping out of the ground. Then I stumbled across some gold in the river, and copper too. While waiting, I took a moment to look at everything I'd built so far, and honestly, this area was coming together pretty nicely. I'd built a bunch of habitats already, I even built a custom cave. This spot right here was going to be where my main house was in this area. Well, eventually. I couldn't actually build proper houses here yet, but I had plans. There were spots marked out for future builds, one near the cave, another with a little side garden, and one more just up the hill. Plenty of room to expand. Nearby, I had a Murkrow waiting in one of the habitats. Further down, there were a new gate, 2 more Pokemon had shown up, Larvesta and a Voltorb, sitting inside a trash can, as you do. There was also another section nearby that was still very much a work in progress. But for now, back to Dartrix. I checked his habitat, and there he was. I asked if he could make cutting boards, which I needed for cooking, and he could. But of course, he needed a favor first. He wanted a perch. Luckily for me, I already had the blueprint, so within seconds that was done. I gave him the perch, and in return, he taught me how to make a cutting board. Finally, I crafted the cutting board, and just as I was about to start cooking, Scorbunny jumped in. Apparently he could help with cooking too. For now, I set the cutting board on a box. I added 2 leaves, and just like that, a simple salad. Bon appetit. I ate it and powered up leafage, and this was actually huge. With the powered up version, I could grow grass over a much larger area, create aquatic plants on water, and even grow moss on stone and hard ground. This was going to make building habitats so much easier. It wasn't unlimited though, there was a meter showing how much power I had left, but honestly, I could just spam salads and keep it topped up. This was just the beginning. Next up was bread, but for that I needed the bread oven, and for that, I need to find a Torkoal. So I headed into the caves and built a mossy hot spring habitat, perfect for attracting one, but while waiting, you already know what time it is. More decorating. I found a Fiddle outside my future house, which felt very on theme considering we're about to start baking. Then I went over to the farm and waterfall near the mine and gave that area some attention. I added 3 new habitats by the pond and started expanding even more. Time to check in on Torkoal, however. I walk up to him and this man just kisses me on the forehead. Alright, I didn't expect that. Anyway, I told him we need a bread oven, and just like Slowpoke, this guy moves at 1 mile per year. So once again, I had to build a full-on pathway just so he could make it to the Poke Center. 5 hours later, he finally arrived, and rewarded me with the recipe for a bread oven. Worth it, barely. I harvested some wheat from my farm, threw it together, and made some bread. And just like that, cut got powered up. Now, instead of just chopping wood, I could cut through chains and metal grates, which immediately reminded me of a few places I definitely couldn't access before, including that barrel. So I went back, used the powered up cut, dropped the barrel, and out popped Greedent. Of course, it was a Pokemon. He starts talking about bringing life back to the town. Mate, I've been doing that for the past 30 hours. But sure, welcome to the team. The upgraded cut also lets me do long range slashes by holding the button, which feels very satisfying, by the way. While exploring, I found a Dugtrio and cleared out a bunch of volcanic ash. This revealed a cave I still couldn't fully access yet, but also helped brighten the area with some fresh greenery. At this point, Greedent was kind of in the way, so I decided to just go along with his quest, as I couldn't move him. He wanted to teach me a new recipe, hamburger steak. Now we're talking. But first, I need a frying pan. Tangrowth told me I need copper for that, which meant smelting, which meant another problem. I needed a smelting furnace. Tangrowth had absolutely no idea where to find one, so naturally, I had to ask around. Eventually, I was pointed towards a Pokemon that manipulates fire, Magma, and conveniently, they lived in the volcano area just past that broken fence. Good thing I could actually get through there now. On the way, I found a recipe for railway tracks, which immediately sparked some ideas for later, then a cooking pot recipe, and then the cave just kept going. Blue crystals everywhere, a bag of Pacha seeds, which might finally solve my sweet food problem. This cave was stacked. I pushed deeper into the volcano and eventually found a smelting furnace. Cue the panic though, because for a solid 5 minutes I thought I'd somehow lost it. Turns out I just had a second inventory tab from an upgrade that I completely forgot about. Crisis averted. I built Magmar's habitat and he showed up almost immediately, then immediately glitched through the ceiling. Nice. While sorting things out, I made a huge discovery. Beans count as sweet food. Beans. I cannot believe I didn't try this earlier. But now I've got a plan. I can make a bean farm for sweet food, a wheat farm for dry food, and maybe carrots for spicy. I'm still testing that one out. But back in the Withered Wastelands, I turned my old house into a full storage building. Then I broke through some fences near my house, which turned out to be a shortcut back to that puzzle from earlier. Inside, I found a room with gold-styled walls, a new Pokemon trace, and some Pokemel. I also discovered something important. Some Pokemon can only spawn in a place called Pallet Town, which explains why a bunch of my habitats was still empty. So I went back, removed the useless ones, and replaced them with habitats that would actually attract Pokemon, and almost immediately, they started showing up. Weepinbell, Charmeleon, Igglybuff, Fraxia, Marowak, Azurill, Growlithe, Minccino, and finally, Haxorus. At this point, most of the habitats in the Withered Wastelands were finally occupied. Only a handful were still empty, but those were tied to rarer Pokemon, which meant there wasn't much I could do except wait. And patience has never been my strong start, so while those filled in naturally, I headed back to Rocky Ridges, and somehow that area had become even busier while I was gone. Waiting for me there was Volcarona, Sudowoodo, Kricketune, Bonsly, Lotad, Lombre, and Jigglypuff. The island was starting to feel less like a deserted wasteland and more like an actual living world, but Greedent still wasn't done with me. Apparently, before we could even think about our next dish, I needed a more suitable chef outfit. So naturally, I upgraded. A tin pot right on my head. Forget chef's hat, this is industrial cuisine now. But we still needed the recipe for the hamburger steak. So checking back in at Magmar, my copper was still not done. The smelling process was painfully slow. But there was 3 ingots waiting there, so I'm not complaining. In the end, I had just enough materials to craft the frying pan, and using some beans, I managed to cook up a hamburger steak. I ate it, and it powered up my rock smash, which means I could now break through even tougher materials, like ores and reinforced structures. While exploring, I found a Clefairy hiding in a bush, then I headed off to a few dream islands to farm iron and copper ore, since I still need the materials to repair the Pokemon Center properly. And of course, while I was there, I found a curly hairstyle. Finally, after all this time, blue curls, 50 hours in, it was all worth it. At this point, I realized something important about Magmar. He doesn't seem to cook the ingots one by one, he seems to cook them all at once, which means if I put 99 ingots in there, I'm going to be waiting for a very long time. So I took a quick nap, which in hindsight I could have just time skipped, but hey, whatever. I woke up and boom, all the ingots were finally done. While I was collecting them, I found another furnace in the cave, which I may or may not have immediately stolen for myself, and back at my base I spotted an Ekans hanging out by the pond. But back at the Withered Wastelands, I invited Charizard into my house, placed my new smelter outside as they're a safety hazard, and now I can cook things straight from my home rather than having to go down an entire cave system. Heading back out to continue repairs, I noticed a bush rustling near the path, and that was Slowbro. Nice. In Rocky Ridges, I found Cinderace, Arbok, and Honchkrow, and then finally the Pokemon Center rebuild was finished. After all that effort, it was done. While I was there, I spotted Cleffa nearby, then Ludicolo showed up in a pond that is absolutely not big enough for him, along with Machamp. I made a quick trip back home after that and brought a bunch of decorations with me, because if I was going to keep expanding, I wanted things to actually look good. Heading back to the base, I found Blastoise, and this was a rare one that I've been waiting for, so this was pretty cool to find. I reached environment level 5, then I decided it was time to finish this area properly and start building these houses. But I ran into a problem. Bricks. I have no idea where to get it from. So instead of stressing about it, I just went to explore again. I made the assumption that it may be in the beach, so we went to the next area. Just for a little bit of exploring, no decorating just yet. At the beach, I found a broken bridge that needed fixing so Tangrowth could cross, and this place was still a mess. I really couldn't tell if I was excited to clean this, or exhausted just thinking about it. Once the bridge was fixed, Tangrowth made it across and immediately spotted another Pokemon Center. I tried using the PC, but nothing. It was dead. It was completely flooded, but thankfully this world obeys very simple logic. Minecraft logic. 2 blocks placed later and the flood was gone. The PC worked again, and our first visitor was Meowth. He explained he woke up one day and everything was just gone. No humans, no explanation, just a world in chaos. He'd been living in a small shack nearby until he got completely flooded, so I helped dry it out for him. Next task for Meowth was to find 2 Pokemon. No time for decoration here yet, so I set up temporary tall grass habitats, and almost immediately, Spinarak and Makuhita moved in. Meowth then asked for another favor. Apparently this place is always dark, no matter the time of day, so he wanted the mushroom lights to brighten up his shack. I went back home, crafted them, and brought them over. Meowth approved, and we finally had some good lighting in this cursed weather. I also hit level 2 on the beach and got a bigger backpack, which was very needed at this point. Then Meowth had one more problem: mud, right outside his door, and apparently he knew someone perfect for this job: Piplup. Within seconds, Piplup was there, bubbling up the mess while I sprayed it away with water gun. Clean, simple, and effective. He even gave me a sea glass fragment as a reward. Back with Tangrowth, he was already pushing for more buildings, so I quickly threw together a simple sand den for now. No proper houses just yet. This area still isn't ready for that level of commitment. While that was being built, I went back to Meowth's questline, and his last request was flowers outside his home, which meant I need a planter. But to get that, I needed Torchic. This was an insanely long questline, but I just wanted some bricks. At this point in the journey, however, I discovered something kind of game-changing. Apparently, once the main story is complete, you unlock a terraforming ability that makes everything I've been doing up to now don't feel, well, a bit inefficient. We're talking about a tool that speeds up building and landscaping massively. So I made a decision. From here on out, I'm not going to fully commit to heavy decorating or perfect layouts just yet. If I can avoid it, I will. Because I'd rather finish the main story first, unlock all the proper tools, and then come back and actually build this world the way it's meant to be built. So the new plan is simple. Push through the remaining areas, finish all the missions, clear the main objectives, and then come back to turn everything into the properly polished version. Once you actually see what that tool does, you will understand why I'm holding off. It basically turns hours of work into minutes. With that new plan in mind, Torchic became the next focus. His habitat was set up, and he showed up quickly, ready to help with the next stage of town building. He explained we'd need bricks for a planter, and of course, bricks don't just appear out of nowhere. Luckily, Torchic could actually cook squishy clay into proper building bricks, so I handed it over and he got straight to work. Brick production was complete, the planter was crafted, and the flowers were planted. Meanwhile, Piplup was still confused about why a shower turned out to be a lamppost, which honestly feels like a fair misunderstanding. Next up was his actual request, a real shower, which meant we needed iron, and that's where Trubbish came in, because apparently the solution to industrial materials is garbage processing. He explained that all the non-burnable rubbish on the beach could be converted into iron ore. So I handed it over, he got to work, and suddenly I had what I needed. Shower was built, Piplup was finally satisfied, and from there, things escalated again. Tangrowth started worrying about whether Pokemon were actually comfortable in this environment, which meant we needed a higher town level. So I did what I do best. I watered everything and I fed everyone beans. Palmy showed up and took over streetlight duty, slowly bringing actual visibility back to the town. Then Piplup suggested something dangerous, swimming. However, Tangrowth did suggest Lapras, so I built the habitat. Lapras showed up almost immediately, except he wasn't here to help just yet. The place was way too dirty. So I cleaned everything up, and then finally I could transform into Lapras. And now I can actually explore aquatic areas and swim. Trubbish then detected the strange noise nearby, which led me to Smeargle, and this guy was a painter. He needed me to smash up a Leaper Berry, which meant I need stronger tools, but before that could even begin, we found something much bigger, a cave, and inside it, Mosslax. A Snorlax that was completely overtaken by moss. And the problem wasn't just waking him up, it was the fact that the entire area is still too dark. So now the focus shifts again, not just restoring habitats, but fully lighting the world properly. He mentioned that most people naturally wake up when the sun comes out, and this was the reason he slept long enough to literally grow moss on himself. It's way too dark outside. So my job was to brighten up the town. Meowth recalled finding more streetlights. All I had to do was light them up. So heading back to find Palmy, I noticed a strange block that seemed out of place. I gave it a whack and it was a Zoroark in disguise. The Zoroark wanted to help disguising himself as different objects, the first being toy blocks, but I'll come back to that later. I got Palmy to light up 3 more streetlights, and it was time to check on Mosslax again. He was asleep still, however, the 2 flower buds in his head opened up. I think we're definitely on the right track, but we're not done just yet. Tangrowth told me to look closely at his flowers, and they aren't fully blooming. He thinks that if I can get a whole flower garden on Mosslax's head, then he will wake up. We noticed a commotion on a further island, so we went to check it out. Is that who I think it is? Pikachu. He looked a lot more pale than usual though, or I guess this guy was called Pikachu. This followed the usual trend. Pikachu has no idea where he is, what happened, or how he got here. He agreed to help us with our lighting problems though. However, it wasn't going to be that easy. This guy seems to have lost his electrical powers as well as his colour. He still followed along with us for now though, but hopefully he can recover his powers and help us out. For now, we had to find a way to light up the cave itself. A seashell lamp would do the trick. So we made one and placed it right next to this sleepy guy. Pikachu then mentioned a contraption by the sea that would keep streetlights lit, instead of having to ask a Pokemon over and over. So I guess we were finally getting closer to having some proper electricity. Pikachu came back from the beach with something that honestly changed everything. A windmill. Not a Pokemon, not a relic, but a full unfunctional windmill, which means we can now finally generate electricity without relying on Pokemon doing backflips on command. Tangrowth immediately followed up with another idea, utility poles. Apparently these are already scattered nearby, just waiting to be used, so I set them up, and just like that, electricity. I placed a street light next to the newly powered lines, and it actually turned on. Proper light and no more Pokemon involvement required. Torchic, meanwhile, had his own interpretation of power generation. His solution was burn more stuff. Specifically, he pointed me towards a massive furnace setup that could convert fuel into energy, which honestly is a very Torchic way of solving things. Then Piplup jumped in with his own contribution, which was water power. He asked if there was any water wheels nearby, and luckily there was. So I redirected water flow by breaking a rock, got the wheels spinning, and suddenly we had another energy source online. Trubbish then discovered a cliffside tower, and of course it had massive spotlights on top. Perfect. All I needed was one more utility pole to bring everything together, and thankfully these things are cheap to make, just a bit of iron and stone. I ended up crafting more than I probably should have, but I wired everything up and the impact was immediate. Snorlax's flower bed, still part of his strange sleeping situation, jumped to 57 points. Still not enough though, we needed 100 to fully wake him up. So I built more poles, connected more systems, made the entire island look like an accidental power plant. Ugly? Absolutely, but functional? Yes. But even then, it still wasn't enough. The system maxed out, no more brightness improvements were possible, and that's when Pikachu stepped in again. He found a machine shaped like a Pokeball, and he had a theory. If we feed it electricity, it might generate enough charge just to wake up Snorlax. So I wired it up, we had full connection, full power. Pikachu stepped onto it and started charging up. He lit up like a storm, and still Snorlax wasn't awake yet. Just one more push was needed. But that's when the sky changed. Lightning struck, and it was a direct hit. And standing there in the storm was Raikou. He explained that when he saw the island lit up, he thought humans had returned. Turns out, it was just me. Same story as the others though, no memory of what happened to the world, no answers and just more mysteries. But the storm had cleared, and with it, the darkness finally lifted. Snorlax survived the lightning strike, somehow, but he was stunned and barely moving. I checked in, and finally, he was awake. Naturally, his first instinct was to try and go back to sleep, which is honestly on brand, but we needed answers first. Again, the same story as everyone else, no idea what happened, no humans, he just woke up. So the focus shifted again. Environment level 5. Time to push the island even further. I'll skip this decorating grind this time because at this point it's mostly just place 40 objects, level up, repeat. But the results speak for themselves, so we brought in Combusken, Grubbin, Ariados, Hariyama, Gloom, Execute, Zubat, Marill, Golbat, Pelipper, and Wingull. And finally at level 5 achieved. So after everything we've been through, the PC finally decided to reward me properly. A message popped up thanking me for my continued use of Pokelife and dropped a washing machine into my lap. Amazing. I finally went to Tangrowth and handed over all the relics I'd been hoarding. And when I say all, I mean like 60. Turns out he doesn't just collect them, he appraises them and converts them into furniture. Suddenly, I've got things like a naptime bed, Team Rocket wall art, meteor lamps in every single colour imaginable, a Pikachu sofa, a spaceship, a mysterious statue, a Rowlet clock, a Raichu sign, even a set of golden teeth, which will be useful for decorating my house later on. Anyway, Rocky Ridge still had work to do. Machoke had a new request, a mossy boulder habitat. Simple enough, moss, rock, done. Graveler showed up immediately, and then casually revealed that he's basically being used as Machoke's gym equipment, which is quite concerning. Graveler wasn't exactly enjoying that agreement, so he suggested something else. Why don't I become him instead? So I unlocked Rollout, and suddenly everything changed. I could just turn into a Graveler and roll. Through rocks, through paths. This thing was insane for movement, and you could even break things which would help with building. I returned back to Machoke and kindly told him that I do not want to be used as his gym equipment anymore, and that seemed to resolve the friendship issue between these two. Anyway, deeper in the cave system, Scorbunny had heard noises, which led me straight into Rotom. Not a Pokemon, a boombox that is also a Pokemon. He invited me to listen to music, but he can wait because I have more cave exploring to do. This cave went on forever. And just when I thought it was going to end, I found a massive underground mansion, or museum, I don't even know what this thing was. Best believe I took every single piece of furniture I could find in there, and I also discovered Gimmighoul. He was asking for some rainbow feathers, but first, back to Rotom. Rotom had an idea of how to make the vibes in this town immaculate, and that was with a party. Honestly, not the worst idea. I asked the others on ideas for how to make this a good party. Greedon, also known as Chef Dante now, said he wanted to make a special dish for a special party, and gave me a party cooking pot. He also picked out a spot for a party which was right next to my future house in this area. Not very ideal, I had to clear out some fences because this cooking pot was huge. But unfortunately, Chef Dante just couldn't come up with a special recipe yet though. I had to raise the mood to get his little peanut brain working. Apparently the mood was sitting around 34 right now. Great, another quest with this point system. This actually might be easier than expected however. DJ Rotom mentioned how I had to give him CDs to play, and I had dozens of these from that god-awful Clefairy doll hunt earlier on. I have no idea how many he wanted, so I just brought him a full inventory. Turns out we can only hold 5 CDs, but at least we have some new music now. Rotom said we're gonna need something other than just music, a Pokemon who can give us a dance performance, just what we need. He mentioned Ludicolo would be a great hyper Pokemon, so I rolled over to his pond and brought him to DJ Rotom. After that, I checked in with Tangrowth for ideas, and of course, after I finally give him all of my damn relics, he wants another one for a quest. What are the chances? So I ventured off until I managed to dig up a large relic. Turns out he actually meant a relic that had already been appraised though, so I could have just used one that we found earlier. He appraised a relic which turned out to be a yellow meteor lamp. I had to head back home to get an exhibition stand that lets me display the item. On the way back, I noticed a Pokemon in a bush. I got so excited I accidentally flattened this hillside. This ability is going to take some getting used to. The Pokemon was a Slowking though, another very rare one. Back at the party, I placed the item to show off, and turns out it's also a mini museum habitat. Gimmighoul lives here too. Greedon had a small issue. Machoke wanted as many extra servings as possible so that he could bulk up. This isn't a charity, get your own damn food. So now half of the job was also on me. Chef Dante wanted me to help cook. He wanted me to make 5 party platters with different foods on each. They weren't too hard to make, just an iron ingot each. So a quick trip home, I made 5 party platters and cooked up some bread, carrot bread, leopard bread, a simple hamburger steak, and a tomato hamburger steak. I then prepared each meal on a platter, and Rotom told me the mood had definitely increased. So we checked in on our current score, and it was 100. We did it. Chef Dante had finally come up with the idea for the perfect dish. Drum roll, please. Curry. You can never go wrong with a curry. Of course I had to prepare the food though, and I had just enough. So I dumped in the ingredients, and with the help of my Pokemon, we started making the party curry. And just like that, the special dish was done. I treated myself to a plate of curry and rice, and my Pokemon were having the time of their lives. That's when we heard the strange rumble. This was either the after effects from the curry or another legendary Pokemon. Let's find out. It was Volcanion. This guy just set off the volcano that we live next to. Does he have any idea how long I've spent decorating this place? Before heading up there though, it looked like the museum habitat we built had attracted an Arcanine. Nice. I confronted Volcanion after his rude interruption. He asked all about the noise and we told him we were throwing a party. We asked him about humans, and it actually wasn't the usual no memory response. This man just said he couldn't care less. Fair enough. And he said he bets it's our fault that the world is so messed up now. I have built the very land that you're standing on. Have some respect. Technically, I'm a Ditto, not a human, so I guess he isn't wrong. Whatever. We added him to the Pokédex and our trainer rank increased to Ultra. The sun was setting and the party was coming to an end, but again, another interruption from Volcanion. He offered us a present. I was half convinced this man just started dropping predator missiles on my village, but thankfully it was just fireworks. Wow, what an end to a beautiful day. And that is the main storyline in Rocky Ridge is completed. Tangrowth then mentioned that there was still another gate in this place we haven't accessed. Now that my trainer rank had increased, I instantly headed for the gate. I made my way to the next gate and opened it up. Just when you thought these areas couldn't get any more interesting, we're literally on a floating island. We were all the way above the clouds, and it looked like these islands are being held up by these crystal-like rocks. Tangrowth and I found some weird looking structure, neither of us could tell what it was supposed to be. He then mentioned it's possible there's another Pokemon nearby, one that's good at building things. Just ahead there was another structure, this time one that looks human-made. I stepped on top, hoping for the best, and it was a lift. It safely took us from one island to another. We found yet another broken Pokemon Center, but more excitingly, a new Pokemon. Rookie D. He mentioned he's never seen a human, but this island is full of all kinds of machinery, mostly broken. He wished that there were more Pokemon, however. Luckily for him, I'm gonna make that wish come true. I checked out the PC, which was thankfully working perfectly. My goal was to then reach level 3 on this Sky Island. So I built a bunch of habitats so we could get Pokemon to move in. Nothing special yet, just the usual habitats that carry across each area, like tall grass, tree-shaded tall grass, hydrated tall grass, flower beds, you get the point. So let's go over a bunch of the Pokemon we managed to attract. First was Sprigatito, then Swablu, Dreepy, Trapinch, Dratini, Pupitar, and Froakie. This helped me reach level 2, where I was then able to increase my bag size one final time. I then caught even more Pokemon. Vibrava, Dracloak, Vulpix, Frogadier, Flygon, Misdreavus, Greninja, and Poliwhirl. That was enough to reach level 3. Tangrowth then asked me if I've ever tried to transform into a Pokemon that can fly. Doing this would definitely make traveling between islands much easier. Turns out we're about to transform into a Dragonite. I'm ready. I learned the habitat for Dragonite, which consisted of a Canoe, duckweed, water, and a high up location. I sprinted back home to grab some salad so that I could power up Leafage and make duckweeds, and on the way there I had a visitor by my house. One that I've been waiting ages for, Venusaur. We now finally had all 3 main starter evolution lines, Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard. Up by the canoe I had made Dragonite's habitat, but in no time, there he was. What a beast. Dragonite was very thankful for his new home. He wanted to do something in return to thank me, and it was honestly more straightforward than I thought it would be. He just told me to transform into him, and I did. I wasted no time, launching myself off a cliff to test my new flying ability, and it was pretty cool. It wasn't exactly flight though, it was more so gliding, but still very useful. My next task was of course to rebuild the Poké Center. There was also a new building on the PC though, a Pokemart, which works as a shop. Pretty exciting. We're gonna have to come back to that later on though, as I'm running very low on coins. I set up the repair kit and this Poké Center was no joke. 25 Pokémetal, 25 concrete, 25 glass, and 25 gold ingots to repair it. Let's just get to work. Back at home I already had enough Pokémetal. Nowhere near enough gold though, so I ventured out to a dream island using the Arcanine plushie and farmed for some. This ended up being a lot easier than I expected. Using Graveler's ability I could literally flatten this mountain, collecting dozens of different ores in the process. After heading back we found a Clefable, and now let's figure out how to get glass. It was actually very simple. Once again, Minecraft logic. Cooking any form of sand in a furnace will create glass, including volcanic ash, which is extremely easy to obtain in rocky ridges. I now had enough gold, Pokémetal, and glass. I just needed the concrete, which I get from a certain Pokemon in the Sparkling Skylands. So I made the habitat required and patiently waited. Our needed Pokemon then showed up. Conkeldurr, as well as Dragonair. Apparently this wasn't enough though. I had to go and find another Pokemon to properly start this mission and get myself a cement mixer. I climbed my way up this massive tower, but alas, no Pokemon, just a bunch of furniture that I definitely did not pocket for myself. At the top, I took a plunge. Soaring through the skies, I flew towards a new island. Unfortunately, the first building I land on happened to be the one that I needed. I heard a bunch of banging and went to investigate. It was Tinkerton. Of course it was Tinkerton. Tinkerton asked for a favor. She needed 6 bricks of concrete. Perfect. Except I also need 25 bricks of concrete. She told me Conqueror wouldn't know how to make it, so I returned back to him. Conqueror now told me I needed a concrete mixer to make concrete. Well done, Sherlock. I've been trying to get one for the past half an hour. He finally gave me the recipe to make one. I made a temporary leaf den to make fast traveling to this place a little bit easier. Then I made the cement mixer, filled it up with limestone, and let Puppetar crush it all for me. I decided to grind up a nice 300 concrete to ensure that I won't need any for a long time. I bought another PowerPoint upgrade at the Poké Center and finally got to work rebuilding it. And just like that, the Skyland Pokemon Center is complete. Apparently I had another quest from Conkeldurr about making a bunch of concrete. I already did that, however, so I completed his request. I returned to Tinkerton to finish her quest too, but she wasn't done just yet. She needed more help with making the lifts around this place work. She said she needed a special gear but can't find one around here, so she figured she would just make one herself. And she needed an iron ingot. Wow, much easier than I thought. So after a quick trip home, I returned with the iron ingot. She then gave me Tinker Gears, which I can use to make a lift platform, and of course, to make the platforms more iron. I knew I should have brought more. Another quick trip home, I collected enough iron and managed to build 2 lifts to transport me between this gap. Not like I'm ever going to use it, you know, as I can literally just turn into Dragonite now. So I placed my 2 platforms and they worked a treat. I reported back to Tinkerton. She said she wanted to check out the town we were building, so we escorted her over. It's just a work in progress. Give me some time. We escorted her to the Poké Center and she now lives with us. Tangrowth asked me if I noticed anything that traced back to humans, and I mentioned the towers we were at earlier, and they wanted me to rebuild this. You're kidding, right? No, they're not kidding. So we made our way up the tower. Tinkerton wanted to check out the 2nd floor first. It seemed like it used to be an office of some sort. The 3rd floor was some kind of maintenance area, and the 4th looked like some fancy headquarters. And thank God, it turned out to be a building kit. They didn't actually want me to rebuild this entire tower brick by brick. The materials were just the same as what we collected from the Poké Center, so I already had enough to rebuild it. Turns out that was only a 2nd floor. I'm gonna need a lot more resources for this. We finished the 2nd floor and it was looking much nicer. Tinkerton wanted the 3rd floor to be an eating area, so we had to get Chef Dante in on the job to help us. We told Chef Dante about the job and we won him over. He was in. We finished construction of floor 3, which was a lovely cafeteria. Then Tinkerton wanted the 4th floor to be all fancy and proper. So this time Pikachu was gonna be of help. Also, we had to learn how to make paper, which required him a tank. I found most of the items for his habitat in the building that we were currently making, and after he showed up, he told us we need to give him waste paper for him to turn it into regular paper. This waste paper was basically all over the ground around here, so I spent some time collecting as much as I needed, and after collecting my paper from a tank, I finished construction of the 4th and last floor. That was the entire building finished, and this place was looking nice. We were about to take a look inside, and that's when we heard the infamous strange noise. But who could it be this time? This time was actually much different. Looking up into the sky, there was a strange purple portal, and someone was moving on the rooftop. I took a calm elevator ride to what could be the end of the world, and there it was, a Master Ball. The most infamous Pokeball of all time. But why was it here? For what purpose? It busted open and out came Mewtwo. Mewtwo asked me if me and my friends constructed this building. It was mainly just me, but yeah, sure. He said that he was scared that humans might be using the power of their so-called science in unwise ways again. We asked what had happened to the humans, and Mewtwo, of all Pokemon, still didn't know. He said the last time he saw a human was in a city where rain no longer fell, Fuchsia, and they were putting up a peculiar building on a nearby beach, and it was highly likely that they were plotting something nefarious. At this point, I caught on. I believe Mewtwo is talking about the weird building we found very early into the game, the one by the beach that we had to give items to in return for a reward. I hadn't been there for a while, but I had a feeling they were up to no good. We registered Mewtwo in our Pokédex, and our trainer rank had increased to Master. I returned back to the ground and let the others know what had happened, and it was now time to do the initiation challenge. I kind of held off on doing this, since I knew that I'd have to progress to the end of the game to actually be able to complete it anyway, but we should have access to all of the items they're requesting. On the way there, I also found an Illumis, and at the strange sandcastle I deposited 10 beans, 10 wheat, and 10 tomatoes. I received a cascade-like badge as a reward, and after completing stage 2, a light had turned on. These 3 lights will turn on one by one as I progress through the team initiation challenge, and I was right about needing to reach the end game for this, as the next stage required paper, which I'd only just unlocked earlier. I already had all these materials from all the hoarding I've been doing, so I collected them and headed straight back. I completed the 3rd stage and got a Thunderish badge. I'm noticing a theme of these rewards being badges. Next was 40 bricks, 20 gold ingots, and 50 concrete. Easy peasy. I got a Rainbowish badge, but the next requirements weren't so easy. I need 5 Tinker Gears, 10 crystal fragments, and lots of electricity. I had 0 out of 50, whatever that means. So I got to work constructing both a water wheel and a furnace near the strange building. After they were both finished building, I made some utility poles, connected both the water wheels and furnace to the building, filled the furnace with wood to burn. This was enough electricity and another stage complete, rewarding me with a soul-like badge. Those were all the intermediate tasks complete, and we now have 2 lights on. just one more to go. Now I needed 4 industrial beds, 4 resort lights, and 4 office desks. I submitted the furniture and got a Marshy badge. Next was a washing machine, refrigerator, and a Game Boy system. We also had a Prinlup just chilling by this water wheel. I guess this is his home now. I bought a washing machine recipe at the beach. I got a refrigerator from reaching level 5 in Rocky Ridges, which I already did a while back. I just forgot to speak to Tangrowth. I had to get level 5 in Sparkling Skylands in order to get a Game Boy though, so let's catch more Pokemon there. I found Duskull, Quilava, Cyndaquil, and Ninetales. I then placed a bunch of decorations to increase comfort and reached level 5. I got the Game Boy system as a reward and finished the next team initiation challenge. I then earned a Volcano badge, and next I had to submit a photo. I decided to go for a photo we took very early on of Combee, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle playing with some toy blocks. A nice reminder of how far we've come, and we'd finally completed the team initiation challenge. Our final reward was an Earth badge, and it was time for celebration. The mysterious voice told me to bring some party poppers. I brought them over, but was told the delivery hatch was full. Professor Tangrowth? Not gonna lie, that gave me a fright. I thought he was the creepy guy using the voice box. But no, he just decided to come over and investigate with me. He asked if I'd learned everything about the building. Not yet, but we're about to. Tangrowth took my party poppers and set them off outside the building, which caused the sand to shake off and the building to go into an emergency lockdown. Turns out the building was actually a huge rocket that then set off into space without looking back. Damn. I was certain it was just a huge sandcastle. This then rolled the end credits, so let's do a little recap on the lore of what just happened, as I was slightly confused, mainly because I was just so focused on decorating and catching new Pokemon. The world was being plagued by huge natural disasters that were making life dangerous for humanity, so they began preparations for a mass evacuation to a different planet. Humanity did evacuate, but before they did, Pokemon were stored away into some kind of PC system, which would gradually let out more Pokemon that were equipped to survive and perhaps help make the world livable again. Beginning with the most adaptable, Ditto, who of course we played as. Ditto's first encounter is with a bookish Tangrowth, a professor, who guides them through the journey, helping them emulate humanity through the lens of Pokemon. We're unsure how much time has passed. Many Pokemon suggest they haven't seen humans in a very long time, but as you make efforts to rebuild, more and more Pokemon arrive. Amid your efforts to rebuild, you discover a mysterious warehouse with a speaker and a hatch asking you for supplies, giving you knockoff copies of the various badges from Kanto as a reward for each completed task, ranging from food, furniture, a Game Boy, and strangely, a cherished photo of your choosing. The final request is for 2 party poppers, which you're unable to deliver. Professor Tangrowth shows you how to set off the poppers, with the big reveal that the warehouse was actually a rocket belonging to none other than Team Rocket. As per the government, Team Rocket wasn't going to be allowed to evacuate together. They were going to be separated to prevent any potential trouble that they might cause in humanity's new home. A member of Team Rocket decided that was unacceptable, and they, along with the team's leader, planned their own means of evacuation to ensure that Team Rocket could remain together. Their plan revolved around getting some good doer to gather their supplies, which was me, and it worked. As the credits roll, you see a very perilous journey before finally Team Rocket's rocket arrives battered, but intact at a space habitat. At that space habitat, you see a plushie of a Ditto in the window, and an astronaut exits to receive Team Rocket, taking pause when they see the photo that Ditto provided. And the game does encourage you to take a photo of yourself and your friends to send, so the trainer likely gets a photo of their beloved Ditto thriving down on Earth, in a way telling them that it's time to return home soon. I saw some people also insist that no one was in the rocket, and that the messages were pre-recorded, hence why we couldn't deliver the party poppers earlier, as no one was actually in the rocket in order to clear out the hatch. But who knows? I don't think anything is 100% proven, and a lot of it is just speculation, but that is a lot deeper than I expected, and very wholesome. Especially the thought of our trainer up in space, receiving a photo of us, the Ditto. But after the rocket had left, it had uncovered an undercover bunker. Down here was Magnemite, a Pokemon who was going to make my decoration job 100 times easier. He mentioned how long it's been since he's seen the open sky and had fresh air. Poor guy. I explored the rest of this bunker. There was just one main room that's honestly quite a mess. That makes me think the pre-recorded message theory was correct. This is not up to living standards. I of course stole all the furniture. I then built Magnemite's habitat, made a water wheel nearby to power his lamppost. I then made the decision that the utility poles are extremely ugly and I don't want these all around my village. So I had a plan, which was to build water wheels underground along with utility poles, as they still give power to things above them. However, I do need the ability to transport water first, so let's go and do that real quick. Apparently you need the progress of Piplup's quest in order to unlock this, so checking back in on Piplup, he wanted to turn this pond into a waterfall. He said first he'd slurp up a bunch of water from his pond, and get somewhere high up, and spit it out. Fantastic idea. Only problem is he cannot store enough water. Fortunately, he knew a Pokemon who was perfect at doing just this. Aha, Wooper. Of course. I needed yellow tall grass next to muddy water for its habitat, but my question is, where the hell is muddy water? Ah, Perfect, it was just around the corner. I made the muddy habitat and patiently waited for my very own Wooper. I told Wooper I need to use him as a bucket. He bargained and told me only if I feed him 3 tomatoes. God damn it, you have a deal. I fed him his tomatoes and learned how to soak up water. A real game changer. And just like that, I made a muddy pond. I reported back to Piplup and made his dreams of a waterfall come true. And back at Magnemite's habitat, I dug out a cave which was going to act as our power line. I built a wheel down there, and after a small amount of terraforming, I managed to get the electrical poles to connect to the lamppost above them. It's a whole lot more work, but it looks way nicer. I escorted Magnemite to his new home, and finally, he taught me the ability I have been waiting for, Magnet Rise. This thing is a game changer. It lets me fly. Like, actually fly this time. None of that gliding stuff that we do with Dragonite. On top of that, I can use this ability to replace any block in front of me with up to 9 blocks of my choosing, which means when I'm placing hundreds and hundreds of pathways, all I need to do is move along and spam the A button. No more breaking out a pathway, collecting all the mess, then placing the blocks one by one. It was now time to finally decorate to my heart's desire. I filled my inventory with a bunch of flowers and trees to get rid of any awkward spaces, and I also learned that just like in Animal Crossing, each account will have a unique tree appear on their dream island. Mine was chesto berries, the blue ones. How convenient. I did have 1 or 2 other berry trees, not sure where I found those, but not an infinite supply to be able to decorate with them, so I guess we'll stick to blue and red trees. I also learned that I can use normal Pokemetal to get duplicates of items in the printer. I guess it just depends on how hard the item is to come by, but not everything requires rare Pokemetal, thankfully. I decided to return to the first area and finish a few things I couldn't do earlier. I could never really 100% finish this place, as I didn't have enough habitats learned, or I needed electricity, or I didn't have the furniture, so on, so on. But now I can finally be happy with our homeland. So let's move a few new Pokemon in. Shellos, Garbodor, right next to my house, lovely. Magneton, Farfetch'd, Charjabug, Vileplume, and Electrode. I was finally satisfied with my first town. We've come a long way and still have a lot more to do, but this place is booming with life now. I'm quite proud of it. I wanted to finish up any side quests before moving on, and I had one from Tangrowth. He wanted me to make him a home just like I did for all these other Pokemon. His habitat was a little complicated. He wanted his wheelbarrow, a bed, and 4 large relics. I just gave him some of the random relics I had. Most of them were cool and I wanted them in my house, so there's no way I'm giving them up. Now let's move on to Rocky Ridges. I finished building not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 whole houses. Hell yeah. I also decided to sidetrack because I had a fantastic idea. If you guys remember earlier, we met Smeargarou. He wanted a smashed up berry, so I brought him one. And you'll see why I'm doing this soon. I gave Onyx a leaf berry and he started making paint. I had a few other berry tree seeds, so I planted them right outside my house and they give me new colors. Asper gave me yellow, Lum gave me green, and Petra gave me pink. I returned to Smeargarou and he seemed to be devastated that the berry had turned to paint instead of a sweet snack. He did, however, take his inspiration to start painting. Amazing. This handy little guy can paint items for me, including houses. I just need to bring him along to one. But first, I had to get him to paint an item for his quest. So I gave him a random wooden barrier to paint blue. He gave me a recipe for these items called paint balloons, and turns out I can just make one of these and paint a house. Perfect. I painted the white balloon to experiment on my house, and I kind of hate it. I'm not sure how these things work, but I didn't expect it to turn everything purely white. I tried some more colors like green and red, but they were just as ugly. It was mainly just the fact that the logs were also painted. I liked the natural wood color. So back at the beach, I found an executor, then returned to Smeargarou and painted this table in front of him to finish his request. Next, he wanted to see a fossil for whatever reason, so I grabbed a jar fossil stored at home and brought him one over. Then he wanted to show me how he can paint specific parts of furniture. So I brought him a random side table that I had found and got to painting. Beautiful. This is going straight in the bin. I could finally bring this guy to a different location though. So I got him to paint my house, and this time I could actually paint each individual part. The walls, the roof, the door, and the window. I went with nice brown for the logs, then blue for the rest. And I copied this idea for the rest of the houses, making a different color each time. It adds a nice variety to them, and I like it. In Rocky Ridges, I did the same, except I went for a white base with a different color for each house, and I like this one a lot. Now let's decorate a little bit more over here. These are the Pokemon that I found. Tyranitar, Politoed. I then ended up taking a quick trip to Pallet Town, which is basically another free piece of land across the ocean where you can build, as a friend wanted to test something with a star piece. But while I was there, I found Eevee, who said that she was looking for the other evolutions. We'll get to that later though. I then found Tyrogue, Raboot, Carkol, Rolycoly, Charcadet, Bastiodon, Golem, Steelix, who clipped into the back rooms. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. Corviknight, Colossal. I took a quick detour to the Sparkling Skylands. The reason being, I needed a Porygon. Needed. Let's take a little look at how nicely Rocky Ridges has come along. I'm pretty happy with this place, but you see all of those lampposts that have power? I dug out an entire tunnel under this town in order to have power without those ugly electrical poles. Yeah, Turns out I can just find Porygon and get him to make me blocks that are way more discreet. I spent at least 3 hours of my life doing this electrical work before I found this out. So I made Porygon a temporary habitat, and after he showed up, all he wanted me to do was get him a CD player and play him some tunes. He then learned me the recipe for these electrical blocks. Thank God. They were only 1 Pokemetal each to craft, so very affordable. I finished catching the Pokemon in the Rocky Ridges caves. I found Glimmora, Glimmet, and I even made an operating minecart leading through the entire cave system. Past all the cave habitats I'd built, through the volcanoes, and all the way out to the other side of Rocky Ridges. I found out that Pokemetal spawns on Dream Islands. It's actually this multicolored ore that we've seen in the past. So I farmed a bunch of it up, found a strange structure in this cave, which was another legendary Pokemon, Mewtwo. I invited him to live back at home with us, and it was finally time to decorate my house before moving on to the beach. I decided my main home was going to be in Rocky Ridges. This place just felt the coziest to me. I decided to only decorate the first floor and just ignore the upstairs because I really didn't need this much space. I just wanted a cozy little house. I liked it though. I also changed my outfit finally. I had a nice little blue and red one that suited my Ditto very well. And next on our decoration list was Bleak Beach. But first I had to decide on which flooring to use. I was either going to go with this yellow square tiling or the blue stylish tiling. I very quickly decided the blue one was my favourite though. Shock. First though, I wanted to unlock a cement border for my pathways, as I don't think the wood ones are going to match. So I caught a bunch more Pokemon in Sparkling Skylands. I did however forget to press record though. Whoops. But here is the massive mess of habitats that is currently in the Skylands. And our new Pokemon, like Swalot, Lucario, Typhlosion, Ralts, Curlier, Dusclops, and Dusknoir. This was enough to reach level 6 over here, and I unlocked the recipe for concrete borders. Also, I found another legendary in a cave, this time Entei. Now, let's go over who we found at the beach. I found Zoroark, and then decided to quickly finish his quest, as this guy's been sat outside the Poke Center for about a week now. I made some wooden blocks to show him, and he used them as camouflage. He taught me the ability and I could transform into whatever object I liked. I can finally live my dream as a grain of sand. Just me and the ocean. This charging station was annoyingly placed in the way of where I wanted to build, and I couldn't move it without completing Pikachu's quests. Well, I'm assuming so anyway, so let's do that real quick. Pikachu wanted me to reunite him with his friends. First on the list was Pichu, so I found a Pichu and brought him over. He instantly flexed on Pikachu, showing him that he still has his electrical abilities. We then brought over Toxel. He started crying and talking about how much he missed Pikachu. Very emotional. And then finally, Deden. I had them all gathered together. Pikachu had stepped up onto the platform and released an electric shock. This was however only thanks to the charging machine that he was stood on. This man was still powerless. Pikachu asked for one last favor, which was to keep it a secret that he could not produce electricity. Finally though, I could move this damn charging station. I found another legendary on a Dream Island, this time Raikou, then Empoleon, Palmo, Tatsugiri, another variant of Tatsugiri, Absol, Toxtricity, Mareep, Electabuzz, Meowscarada, Tyrantrum. Don't ask me why this man was full on just stood on top of his fossil statue. Ceruledge, Cincino, Crobat, Gastrodon, and another variant of Gastrodon. And that now wraps up Bleak Beach. All decorated and looking good. Let's finish up the quest that we still have here. Snorlax asked for some food, so I placed some beans down on his plate and discovered his habitat, a Gorman's altar. Snorlax mentioned how eating made him nostalgic, you know, since he's been in a slumber ever since humans vanished. He claimed that humans used to bring him food a long time ago, just like I did for him. I then got rewarded with a higher chance to find ancient artifacts. Nice. Makuhita wanted me to build an orange hut for whatever reason, so I constructed one and then instantly demolished it. I don't know why, but I just don't like the way these blocky buildings look in this game. It's just not my style. Torchic wanted me to make a hot spring shower habitat, so I slurped up some rosemary tea which allowed me to create steamy water, and I made 2 habitats which brought along Psyduck and Golduck. Now, if you didn't know already, Psyduck is my absolute favorite Pokemon. I adore this guy, mainly because his shine is blue and it's just beautiful, okay? And I even have a shrine for this guy at my desk. So this man was living with me. There was no debate on that. Golduck, however, can stay far, far away. I will never get over the fact that they destroyed my boy with such a disgusting evolution and shiny variant. Anyway, next I had to check out this suspicious boat that was chilling by the shore. Heading inside, I heard a strange voice. Turns out it was just Happiny. She told me that she was sleeping on the ship when an awfully loud sound woke her up. So I went to go and investigate the sound, and it turns out it was just an alarm clock. I brought it back to her to put her mind at ease, and then she asked me about this cash register. Confused at what it was, she wanted me to power it up, and doing so unlocked me a new habitat, which had attracted Nardino fairly quickly. I then fixed up the pool as Happiny requested, and that was all my quests in Bleak Beach 100%ed. I did have one more backup with the wastelands I forgot to complete though, so let's go and do that real quick. Tangrowth wanted me to place an lighted campfire in his base, so I put one in his cave home. He then waffled on about how much he loves me or whatever. Cute. And I guess I should also do the quests in Rocky Ridges. We do have a fair few. In Rocky Ridges, I found Decidueye, and then I brought a rainbow feather to Gimmighoul. He told me how if I bring him rainbow feathers, silver feathers, or appraised relics, he can trade them for special furniture. I finished a quest from Riolu for building a house. I then spoke to Corkle, who asked me if I'd ever ridden in a minecart. Little did he know, this entire cave was a roller coaster. Basically, he liked the rides but was too scared of the speed. So he wanted me to place more railroad crossing gates to slow the minecart down. I guess I already did this, however, with the other 2 railroad crossing habitats I had already made, so that is a quest done. Riolu wanted some carrot bread, so I cooked some up and granted his wish. Dartrix wanted a shredded salad, and if you didn't already know, you can invite certain Pokemon with special abilities to cook with you. This is needed for some recipes, like the shredded salad. I was able to make this because Dartrix had the chop ability. DJ Rotom wanted a bunch of CDs. He didn't tell me how many, so I just brought a few dozen to be safe, and thankfully that was enough. Next, Chef Dante mentioned replicating a special soup. He said it was his favorite one, a sweet and sour flavor, but he just couldn't replicate it. He then taught me a habitat for him. I guess this was his way of telling me to give him a damn home already. Ugh, fine. So I built up his home. He managed to make the special soup, and it didn't taste good enough. What more could this guy possibly need? He said maybe his buddy could help, and that he had a book hidden somewhere in Rocky Ridges. I recalled seeing a book just outside the Poké Center, so I rushed over to collect it, and it was the one we were looking for. The book had mentioned chesto berries, so Chef Dante instantly added that to his recipe, and that was it, the secret ingredient. Back at the weird cave museum we found earlier, Gimmighoul wanted a home, so I made him one just outside of my house, and that was all the quests in Rocky Ridges completed. Let's go and transform Sparkling Skylands next. I found Wattrel, Corvisquire, Raichu, Mr. Mime, Mime Jr., Snivy, Chansey, Altaria, Haunter, Ghastly, Goldengo, Persian, Girafarig, Metagross, Wigglytuff, Farigiraf, Blissey, Blossom, Dragapult, Servine, Serperior, Vigstribel, and then back at the Bleak Beach, I found Magnezone, Clodsire, another Tatsugiri farm, and Azumarill in the Withered Wastelands. Jesus. By this point, I had 228 Pokemon registered in my decks, and there were around 300 altogether. Sparkling Skylands was looking amazing at this point, and I was finally ready to move on to the last major area. Pallet Town. This place is basically a huge sandbox island where you can just build whatever you want. There are actually 3 separate islands and they're pretty massive. I doubt I'll need all this space just for the remaining Pokemon, but I imagine future DLCs will probably fill it out more later on. For now though, I decided to focus on the first main island. To start off, I just threw down a bunch of habitats in one small area. They're definitely not staying like that, it's a complete mess right now, but I needed to boost the environment level first so I could fix up the Poké Center. And that ended up attracting quite a few Pokemon. Pawmot, Munchlax, Flaffy, Coffin, Tinkertuff, Weezing, Tinkertink, Rowlet, Pikachu, Mawile, Blaziken, Geodude, Squovette, Machop, Cramorant, Scizor, Magby, and Vikavolt. At this point, I've basically built almost every habitat I'm aware of. There are only a few left. 8 special habitats that only work in Pallet Town, 2 more in Sparkling Skylands, and 1 that can go anywhere. So I decided to start clearing those out next. I found Sliggoo and Kilowattrel along the way. Then I spent an embarrassingly long time waiting for Poliwrath to show up, from what I thought was my sewer hole inspection habitat. Turns out he was a quest Pokemon and was just chilling out in a completely different island. He told me I have noodle arms and then dragged me to his favorite training spot. There he explained the area is surrounded by super hard sand and he wanted me to bring him 6 blocks of it. So I did. After that, I moved on to the special Pallet Town habitats. There are 8 of them, and each one is basically a table and a chair set up with different food or drink theme, 1 for each evolution. I didn't have to craft the food myself though, I earned each one from different tasks around Pallet Town. So first up, I completed a challenge involving finding more Pokemon, which gave me a ribbon cake and unlocked Sylveon. Next, I built a temporary leaf hut and a home and invited a Pokemon to live there, which rewarded me with an afternoon tea set and unlocked Espeon. Then I planted 12 different types of flowers, which give me a soda float and brought in Vaporeon. I planted 50 vegetables and tilled soil, which give me sandwiches and unlocked Leafeon. The remaining challenges were a bit more time consuming though, things like building 15 structures or placing 300 roads, so I'll just gradually work through those as I go. For now, I started focusing on getting everything set up properly in this final town. We also came across Aurorus, Litwick, Tangela, Beldum, Mimikyu, Rampardos, Snorlax, Lampent, and Umbreon. At this point, Pallet Town is really starting to feel stacked. It's basically turning into a full roster of Pokemon just roaming around as I keep building things out. Pidgeot, Drifblim, Ampharos, Goodra, Armarouge, Kadabra, Chandelure, Poliwag, a second variant of Porygon, Aerodactyl, Elekid, Electivire, Gyarados back in Sparkling Skylands, Jolteon, Glaceon, Magmortar, Flareon, Gengar, Amora, Shieldon, Cranidos, Noibat, Florigato, a third Porygon variant, Gallade, Noivern, Minun, Plusle, Tyrant, and Gardevoir. At this point, the Pokédex is basically just filling itself out every time I turn around. Then I moved on to something a bit more dramatic. I constructed the Altar of Flame, a massive pyramid-like structure, almost ritual in design. Inside, it opened into a volcanic cave area, and right at the end of it, waiting for me, was a Moltres. Then I made an abandoned power plant, and inside it was Zapdos. After that, I discovered a freezing chamber, which turned out to be home to Articuno. And just like that, I had now found all 3 of the legendary birds. As a reward, I received a recipe for a tidal bell. I didn't waste any time crafting it and immediately tried to use it, but when I rang it, I got told I need to use it when a Pokemon is flying nearby. Basically, it only works when legendary birds are actually spawning in the sky and dropping feathers, and this ties into both Lugia and Ho-Oh. Lugia needs rain to spawn, and Ho-Oh needs clear, sunny weather. So I waited, and waited, and waited some more. Eventually, I spotted Ho-Oh, I placed the bell down and rang it again, but he completely ignored it. Turns out there are actually 2 different bells, and the one I had only works for Lugia. So I tried again later and eventually managed to find Lugia instead. This time, the bell worked and I managed to lure him down and register him in the Pokédex. After that, I realized something important. I actually already had the recipe for the clear bell, which is what you need for Ho-Oh. That was because I already caught Raikou, Entei, and Suicune earlier. The only thing I was missing was a rainbow feather, which conveniently drops from Ho-Oh himself. So now, the plan is pretty straightforward. Wait for Ho-Oh to spawn, hope he drops a feather, grab it, craft the bell, and then use it to lure him down or before he disappears again. So yeah, I've basically set myself up for a very stressful timing challenge because these birds take forever to show up. After God knows how long, Ho-Oh finally showed up, but my plan still didn't quite work. Just seconds after he dropped the final rainbow feather that I needed, he was gone, of course. But at least I could finally craft the bell now, all I needed was one more encounter. And not long after, Ho-Oh appeared again. This time things lined up properly, and with that, my Pokédex now sits at 299 Pokemon. Just 1 remaining. But who could it be? If you remember that puzzle we found very early on in the Withered Wasteland, you might already have an idea of what or who the final Pokemon is, especially considering we've already seen half of that puzzle completed so far. So I get out to dig up as much treasure as possible and finish it up properly. And after finding the final 13 pieces, a portal appeared in front of the picture. And of course, out came Mew. With that, the Pokédex was finally complete. 300 Pokemon registered in total. Pallet Town was also finished, for now. I'm sure there's some DLC planned down the line to fill in some of those empty spaces anyway, but for the base game, that's everything done, and that's officially 100% completion of Pokopia. This video took an insane amount of time to record and edit, so if you enjoyed it, feel free to support the channel by subscribing, and you can always change your mind later. That's going to be it for this one though. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.